What's going on, everyone? Nick Filato with Big Blue View here to preview Nolan Smith, the University of Georgia pass rusher. This is a player who was the #1 ranked prospect going into the 2019 recruiting cycle. Number 2 was Kayvon Thibodeaux. So yes, this is the only player who was ranked higher than Kayvon Thibodeaux. Went to the acclaimed IMG Academy, where giant greats Evan Neal and Mark Colombo both attended. But for a variety of reasons, his college career didn't necessarily pan out like many expected. He never had more than 4.5 sacks in any given season, but I still believe this is a player who has high upside and one who can be a pass rushing threat in the league. So let's get into his tape. Nolan Smith is an elite undersized athlete at edge who ran a 4.39 40 with a 1.52 10-yard split, jumped 41.5 inches in the vertical and 10.8 in the broad jump. He exemplifies the ability to challenge offensive linemen's angles by making them miss in a phone booth with a unique blend of suddenness, short area quickness, change of direction, lower body flexion, and body control. He maintains a low center of gravity, displaying good leverage that is sustained through impressive technique as a run defender despite his less than desirable size metrics. Smith can be shot out of the cannon, and he utilizes precise footwork to put himself into an advantageous situation, not to mention he is quick in pursuit, as you're seeing him track down Bryce Young, who is a pretty good athlete at the collegiate level on your screen right now.
Here's his simulcam against Saquon and run CMC.
Come on.
And according to our simulcam, he's faster. Unbelievable.
He's fast. He's really, really fast. I mean, he's so fast. He makes fast people look not fast.
Nolan Smith isn't the biggest or the longest, and his stats don't necessarily jump out at you. That lack of production fairly detracts from Smith's ability to rush the passer. When discussing Georgia prospects, it's important to note their usage for context. Smith never played more than 500 snaps in his 4 seasons at Georgia, but it's not an indictment on the player. Azeez Ojulari didn't crack 500 in any year he played at Georgia. Jordan Davis didn't. And Trayvon Walker, the first overall pick last year, failed to top 600 snaps in a given season. Georgia has one of the deepest defensive line rotations in college football. Couple that with Georgia's propensity to blow teams out, and that's one of the variables as to why Smith's usage was down. A proper way to do justice to Smith's pass rushing profile is to examine his pass rush production per opportunity. Through 4 seasons, Nolan Smith had 621 career pass rushing snaps. He recorded 12.5 sacks. That is a sack on every 49 pass rushing snaps. And according to Pro Football Focus, he had a 25.5% pass rush win rate in 2022, which ranked in the top 5 of all FBS teams. Here are those same statistics for 5 other top edge rushers in the 2023 NFL class. Here we have Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech, 22.3% pass rush win rate for the 2022 season. Here we have Will Anderson, likely top 3 pick. He had a 20.4 pass rush win rate in 2022. Here is BJ Ojulari out of LSU, an 18.9 pass rush win rate this past season. And you can also see his other stats from his career. I hope you were looking at them for the other players as well. Here is Lucas Van Ness, redshirt sophomore, who had an 18.8 pass rush win rate this past year. And here's Miles Murphy of Clemson with a 14.3 pass rush win rate. So in 2022, Nolan Smith had a higher pass rush win rate than any of the other top edge rushers going into the 2023 NFL draft. And pass rush win rate is a metric used by Pro Football Focus to determine if a pass rusher defeats their blocker in 2.5 seconds or less. And when you possess the suddenness and the quickness and the ability to win around the edge like Nolan Smith does in such an efficient manner, then you're going to more than likely have a really good pass rush win rate. Let's get into some of those clips that display those traits that are really imperative to success in the NFL. These first 3 clips are from 2021, and Nolan Smith really developed his pass rushing repertoire, his aiming points, how he was able to win and disengage in 2022, and we'll go over that throughout a lot of these clips. Here we're going to see a nice 2021 rep where he wins around the edge. This is something he could do very well. He has excellent bend in his lower half and really has that cornering ability where he can flip his hips and swivel them into the pocket, orient himself towards the quarterback, and then crash down. Look how low he is able to get. Kind of looks like Azeez Ojulari doing this, and Azeez Ojulari also Georgia Bulldog, as we know. Nolan Smith does this fantastically, and now we're about to see a play. That was a forced fumble, but we're about to see a play against Evan Neal. Here's Evan Neal. And watch how Nolan Smith uses the stutter. This is from 2021, obviously, and he's just going to go and penetrate the B gap between the guard and the tackle, splits them both, gets pressure, sacks Bryce Young. That's a really impressive play from Nolan Smith, but what we see in 2022 is much more refinement, and I wish we saw a little bit more of it because he was hurt early on in Week 9 against Florida. We know Georgia ended up going to the national championship game, and I think Nolan Smith's skill set would have really shined on this very deep defensive front that Georgia possesses. So here is the first play of 2022 that we're going to show you in this section, and here we have him in a wide 9 against this tackle, and watch how he wins first, gets in to get this sack, and we'll go over just the aiming points and how it is a little bit more refined. Look, he's going to go for that long arm engagement with the inside arm, and right as he does that, he does this hop step, and this is how many steps into his pass rush. He has this nice wide advantageous angle for him, and he gets into his third step, and then he makes the contact, and he knows that this tackle is going to punch with that outside arm, so you break that contact, and let's look at the aiming points right on the elbow. You see that? He breaks the contact, and when you do that, that forces the momentum of the offensive lineman forward, and that's exactly what happens. So as you do that, you go to make the contact, you use that chop, and now you dip that inside shoulder and look at the stress that he is putting on these ankles, and look at the lean and the tilt to this player as he is bending around the edge, bending through contact and getting them hips oriented into the pocket, man. This is unique, special, Gumby, bendy type of pass rushing traits right here. When you can put that much stress on your ankle and win high side and come to balance and maintain your balance and your speed and your quickness as you're rushing the passer, it's very special. And we can see that right there from Nolan Smith. We'll watch it one more time. But what I love is the development from 2021 to 2022, where he is able to just hit that aiming point right away to cleanly disengage. Stab, chop, win, and he completely separates from the tackle. And here against South Carolina, you're just going to see how poised and controlled he is when he is maneuvering around a bunch of trash. Watch how 18 goes to get him, and he just ghosts at. Look how low his lower body is as he just jumps around that lateral agility to avoid contact, then comes square to 62 and find a way to defeat him with just a double swipe and then a swim move over top. Forces an incomplete pass, but watch how controlled he is in doing so. And this is one of the many reasons why he was the #1 overall recruit. And he's stringing moves together, and he has the knowledge and the confidence to avoid 18's contact, because South Carolina's like, let's pay a lot of attention to Nolan Smith out there, #4. And then just the sheer athletic traits to avoid that contact, square up the 62, attack the half man. Look at the aiming point right on the elbow again. So right at this point, he explodes off this foot to avoid 18, and then he explodes off this foot to get around 62, bring that inside arm outside, swim over the top, and then just break the contact to completely separate entirely like Dennis Reynolds, get that quarterback hit. Here's a similar high side rush win from Nolan Smith. Seen Azeez Ojulari did this a lot at Georgia. He's employing it now in the NFL. Explode out of your stance. You can just see how quick Nolan Smith is. Challenge the angle. Now this tackle's opening his hips, trying to engage. Nolan Smith's already shot his arm into the chest, and he's already employing that violent club with his outside arm to break any sort of contact, force the momentum forward, and then give himself a soft corner just to flip his hips inside and then flatten. You can see how flat he takes that angle too. How much control he has over his movement and how flexible he is in his lower half. And we're going to see something similar here against the University of Florida. Explodes out of his stance, makes contact, and he just bends right here. And you're going to see it a little bit better. This ends up being incomplete, but watch how he bends through this contact, because this tackle does a better job than the last one. But he initiates the inside stab move, then he goes for the violent chop. And as he does that, 76 brings his feet up the arc to cut off the angle and not make it as soft of an angle as we saw in the previous play. But watch how Nolan Smith maintains contact with the inside arm, and now watch the feet as they just bend. Flexion, ankle flexion. Look how flat that foot is, and look at the angle of Nolan Smith's body as he's able to keep 76 off of him, not allow 76 to access his chest whatsoever. And all Nolan Smith has to do now is just use his strength to just turn the corner. And you can see how low he's getting. His knees are almost scraping the ground. It's very reminiscent of Azeez Ojulari against Chicago this past year when he came back healthy. And I was like, oh my God, Azeez Ojulari, he might even be bendier than he was in college. And I feel like Nolan Smith is bendier than Azeez Ojulari was on his tape when he was at Georgia. And just the ability to do this, the ability to bend through that contact and get your hips oriented into the pocket to threaten offensive linemen with your speed up the arc. It's one of the most critical traits for an edge rusher to possess. And as you're seeing throughout this tape, Nolan Smith has it in spades. Here we're going to see a similar play, only there's a little bit more of a power element. And I wanted to add this just because Nolan Smith doesn't consistently convert speed to power. He's much more of a finesse and speed type of player, albeit watch this guy against the run. It's really unique because he's one of the better run defenders you'll ever find. But he does employ power at times, and this is one play where I felt like he did. Like this tackle was anticipating Nolan Smith to win up the arc, or try to. And you could see how Nolan Smith guessed to chop down the punch, but the punch was delayed. The tackle did a good job baiting Nolan Smith to engage a punch, and you could see how Nolan Smith goes to chop it down, but then he's just like, okay, I'm going to use my speed and my quickness to get up the arc and try to win high side. It doesn't really work because 77 cuts that angle off, as we could see. So watch how Nolan Smith then tries to go through 77. And he notices that, and then he gets that inside hand right on the breastplate and then just lifts up. And you can see the leverage because he's only 6'2", right? Doesn't have the longest arch, but you can see the leverage that he plays with and how he just drives. And you can see how he tosses 77. This player feels a little bit threatened, and the quarterback, and then he bails. And Nolan Smith's able to split the guard and the tackle. But there's a little bit of power there, right? Just a little bit. I wanted to kind of put that on film for people to see, and you're going to see it again here against Alabama back in 2021. You see that power element as he drives 79 right back into Bryce Young. So he's going to try to win high side. Good double punch by 79, but now Nolan Smith is going to engage the long arm and try to take advantage of the fact that he is already this high up the pass rushing arc. So why not, while this player is trying to recuperate and cut off your angle, use his momentum against him and drive him back into Bryce Young. And he does that, but Bryce Young is Bryce Young and gets the football out of his hands. And now we'll see a little bit of speed to power from a wider alignment against Auburn in 2022. Engages. That is a bull rush, right? Face mask to face mask. You could say he could be a little bit lower, but watch the power that he gets this tackle back on his heels a little bit. At this point, he creates this separation that's necessary to realize what exactly is going on. So now he's going to try to win outside. You can also see how he has this hand free, and this tackle is not engaged. Doesn't have the control of Nolan Smith with that outside arm. So Nolan Smith's just going to use both arms and try to shed this tackle with a double swipe to just break the contact. That's exactly what he does. He has enough power to put him back on his ice skates, and he does just that as he rips down right there. It's kind of like a push-pull almost, but a little bit more of a swipe down. The tackle loses his balance, and now Nolan Smith is able to separate, and he just forces the quarterback to toss it out of bounds. But look at how low he gets once he sheds this tackle at this point. Now watch him redirect himself. He plants that outside foot, and he's able just to recollect himself. And just look at the body and how low his legs are. They're almost freaking horizontal and parallel to the ground. It's kind of nuts how he's able just to redirect his path and then pick up the steam that he does to cut this angle off of an athletic quarterback. Now we're going to see some run defending plays from Nolan Smith, and I gotta say, I get it. He's like 238 pounds. He's not the biggest guy, and that is definitely a concern moving forward, and some NFL teams may not even entertain drafting him, but I just feel like he has such a high floor. And plays like this make me think, hey man, I know he is light in the pants a little bit, but holy crap, does he embrace contact. Look at him use the squeeze technique right here against this GH counter run with the quarterback. Little bash, you see the quarterback look in that direction, seeing what's going on. What does Nolan Smith do? And he's reading block down, step down, look for this puller, and then intercept. And he does that with violence as he just intercepts, keeps that outside hand free, squeeze technique. This rushing path right here is very congested, which is going to force the ball carrier bounce outside right to number 24. And you can see the ball carrier has nowhere to go. That is great technique. That is violent. That is not easy to do because Nolan Smith is surrendering, 80 pounds to this backside guard who is pulling. And you can see just the leverage, how low Nolan Smith is, and how he delivers that strike with his inside shoulder to create this pile up right here in the desired run gap, to where this H-back is just going to run and he can't reach 10 because 10 is going to fade out because the ball carrier is bouncing outside to this spill-contained defender, which is number 24, and that all happens because of the technique and the violence that is used by number 4 on that play. And that's not the only play on tape where Nolan Smith is showing his absolute love for contact and how he just embraces it. We're going to see it against Alabama here. Look how low he goes. He goes right in. This is more of a wrong arm technique. Squeeze technique before is when you go in with your inside shoulder, you keep your outside hand free. Here he goes in with his outside shoulder, and this is just a method to create an entire pile up. And I think Nolan Smith was a little bit late to recognize this. You can see he's not really in a ready stance. And then at the point of the snap, Bryce Young already has the football. Nolan Smith is still in a stance, so he's late to it. But watch how aggressive he is just flying into contact. That's what I want to know. He is not scared of contact whatsoever. He can get really low, as I've brought up several times throughout this video. He has that low center of gravity. He has all the athletic traits and flexibility to get low, maintain his balance through contact, despite the fact that he's surrendering so much weight. And he just takes on this blocker. And like I said, again, this is not the best because Nolan Smith was late, but I love how he embraces the contact. And that's why I'm highlighting it, not because he was late. That's not something that should be applauded. Here we're going to have a zone read inside zone from Missouri. Nolan Smith is the end man on the line of scrimmage, the read defender. But what Georgia does is they are going to slant him inside and then replace the contain responsibilities with 10, which puts Missouri into a bind to not exactly know what to do. And we're going to see that right here. Also love how Nolan Smith avoids 45, the H-back, who split zone. He's coming across to kick out the end man on the line of scrimmage and absolutely misses because Nolan Smith does a really good job staying really tight, coming off, then making the tackle to 20. So look at this from the quarterback's perspective. The quarterback is looking to read Smith, goes into the mesh point with number 20. There's a lot of eye candy, which brings another defender away from this area of the field. So 12 is reading Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is going to crash down, which typically would allow 12 to keep it and run around the edge. But you can see how 12 is seeing through Smith and sees 10. He's replacing him here. So there's this big hole that's opening up in the middle of the field where 20 can run directly through it. But 15 quickly fills, presents his chest in the hole, bouncing 20 outside right to Nolan Smith, who avoids the kick-out block from 45. So good play by Georgia's defense overall and good individual effort from Nolan Smith. Also well designed to have 10 assume contain responsibilities in a replace situation, allowing your end man on the line of scrimmage to slant inside, which is going to give these zone read teams some issues on quick discernment and decision making. Here, we're going to see Nolan Smith, end man on the line of scrimmage. 9 is going to align directly over top of him, and he just strips the ball out of Richardson's hands. Gets a forced fumble. But you can see just the strength and then the ability to shed right there. Gets his eyes to the outside, feels the leverage that 9 has, realizes that he has teammates filling these gaps right here. So look to the outside, make contact, then he gets his hands on the football and strips it right away from Anthony Richardson. Now we have Nolan Smith on the outside. We're just going to see some backside pursuit. The offense is going to bring the guard and the tackle, pull both of them around. You can see how Nolan Smith stays, gets his eyes on the mesh point, sees where the football's going, knows that both of those linebackers from the backside are pulling, so he just ventures to the front side of the play and then delivers a hit. Just goes unblocked, essentially. Just kind of reading your keys and knowing exactly what the offense is going to do. Now here's another play against Missouri that just shows Nolan Smith isn't the easiest read defender. If you couldn't make that out from his combine, from the elite testing numbers and the movement skills that he shows, here he's the read defender, right? So he's going to go into the mesh point, and this quarterback, like we just went over with Missouri a little bit ago, gets his eyes on 4, realizes that 4 is closes down hard, so he's going to keep it. But watch how Nolan Smith is able to just quickly process that and then just explode off that inside foot and make the tackle. Easy peasy for Smith. And he is not an easy guy to read because we're going to see a similar type of situation against Spencer Rattler in South Carolina. Just see a ton of violence in his hitting and his ability to track down. And when you have a guy like Nolan Smith as your read defender, it's not a great place to be if you're a zone read type of team because As well as he's playing this, you could see how square Nolan Smith stays, and at the mesh point when Spencer Rattler is making the decision to hand the football off or keep it himself, Nolan Smith is going to be able to make either one of those plays because he is that good of an athlete. And he does right here, as Spencer Rattler cannot avoid Smith. And there's a quick video of Georgia edge rusher Nolan Smith. Look, he wasn't the most productive. He's not the biggest, but he's still a high floor player who at the worst will be a very adept pass rusher in the league. And you see the violence and his ability to hold up against the run, his technique, how low he gets, how he can lock out, how he can engage his hands, how he fits his hands, his aiming points, all of the things from a technical standpoint as a run defender are there. He just doesn't have the size and the mass, and it could lead to some durability issues, and it does not help the fact that he missed the back end of 2022 with a pectoral injury, but it's not like a lower body injury or anything like that. It's not something that typically is going to linger and will likely affect him at the next level. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. He's looking like he'll be a day 2 pick at some point. I think he would add value to the New York Giants, but the Giants have a lot of holes on their roster, so I don't know if they would look to pursue Nolan Smith with one of their first 2 picks, but anything can happen. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I am Nick Filato. This is Big Blue View. If you guys have not done so yet, please head on over to bigblueview.com and check out all of our written content. And also please like and subscribe this YouTube channel. That would be excellent. Draft season is here. We are hyped, and we will be covering it extensively over at Big Blue View. So please head on over there and check it out. Thank you everyone, and have a lovely day.